When it comes to city builders, there are a ton of them to choose from, ranging from classic titles of the 90s to more modern interpretations today. Despite this, many of them never really explore the fantasy realm and usually stay within a historical or modern perspective. This brings us to Against the Storm, which is a fantasy roguelike city builder currently in early access. Exploring a fantasy universe for this genre is unique enough, but adding in roguelike elements has the potential to make this something truly unique and special. With that said, is this a game worth investing in? As a quick disclaimer, I did receive a free code from the publisher Hooded Horse. While I do appreciate the free code, it will not deter me from a fair and honest review. Sounds good? Let's begin. So the game starts out with a tutorial town, and the first two towns are basically tutorial towns before the game lets you loose. So each town has up to 3 different species of citizens, each better at certain tasks than others, and each also have their own specific needs, specific kinds of shelter, clothes, food type, etc., etc. It's very easy to find out what they want if you just highlight your cursor over it, so that's a good thing. Ultimate goal is to max out your reputation to move on to the next town, and you do this by tasks that you're given by the queen to complete, and completing these tasks will increase your reputation as well as lowering the queen's impatience. So I recommend to usually time the completion of the tasks with the certain amount of impatience in order to reduce the impatience as much as you can. So most of the early game will be spent cutting down trees to open up glades, and you can assign your workers to each building. And like I mentioned prior, some species are better suited to certain tasks than others. So for stuff like, for example, the woodcutters camp, you would like to assign beavers because they will return more wood for you than other species. Most glades that you clear are relatively safe, while others will have events that need to be completed in order to avoid negative modifiers to the city. So usually it's in the way of lowering resolve to your settlers, and if resolve falls too low, they'll start to leave and you'll start to depopulate. So I honestly just enjoy the process of opening up new areas and finding new resources, but it does take far too long at times to cut down the trees. Thankfully, you can alleviate this by fast forwarding the time, but it's something that I wish the developers can tweak a little bit. So cutting down trees and expanding your city will also have a negative modifier against the environment, and the game operates in seasons, and the storm season can become very intense depending on a multitude of factors. Basically, the environment is reacting negatively to you because you're draining its resources. Now, I'm pretty sure there's like some meta discussion of this, or there's probably like a narrative piece of it, but I haven't played far enough, nor I don't think that's somewhere in early access yet for us to explore. But anyway, storms do have a very negative effect on your settlers' resolve. And as I mentioned before, if it drops too low, then they can depopulate. So you should plan for this ahead of time to make sure that settlers are satisfied enough to handle the drop in resolve. So when you max out your reputation, you get a summary of your performance and can move on to the next town. And if you can also get enough experience points, you'll level up as well and unlock different buildings to use. Once the 2 tutorial towns are complete, you are taken to the grand map, and from here you can select the location of your next town and the level of difficulty. So I basically stayed at settler difficulty, which is the easiest, but the higher difficulty you go, the more intense storms are, the harder resolve becomes to manage, and also more reputation is needed to beat the city. So each location has its own biome, and each biome features its own challenges in terms of natural resources, dangerous glades, etc., etc. So after choosing the place, you can choose the caravan to accompany you, as well as a few bonuses to get you started. You can also apply permanent upgrades, which will help to make future expeditions easier. And overall, I do like the player choice here, as you get a sense of controlling your own destiny here. So you have to keep building towns and rebuilding prosperous towns, but you have your own way of doing it, and it's always random enough where you're always interested to see what the environment will give you. So one of the things that you'll quickly realize is how some of the tasks can be nearly impossible. to complete with a given map's natural resources. So for example, you may get a town to make biscuits or some sort of uh, product, some sort of food product, but then you'll realize that you don't actually have the right ingredients to make it, nor any of the buildings to produce it. So you can either hope to get that blueprint from leveling up your reputation, or possibly trade for it, build up a trading post, and hopefully that person will have what you need, or the ingredients to make it. Thankfully, you can always raise reputation through high resolve of your settlers, or just completing some glade events and choosing the right reward for there. So I'm very impressed with the level of choice here. So it never feels like you quote unquote soft lock yourself. There's always other way and other ways to do it. I mean, you can lose in this game, and I did lose my first city for making some really bad choices on my part. But overall, the game really gives you a lot of flexibility in how you want to tackle each town. So definitely appreciate it there. Another thing is some of the mechanics introduced, such as rain collecting, isn't very well explained. There is a journal entry on it, but I still wasn't sure how it can be applicable to my buildings. I just didn't know if I needed to get a permanent upgrade first or just level up in general. I ended up stockpiling the rain and not really using it at all unless the queen requested it for a task as a resource. But honestly, stuff like that, again, I don't know if it's because it's not fully implemented or something I'm doing wrong, but I just kept collecting it and never really saw the use for it. So presentation wise, I really do like the art direction here. The colors are incredibly vibrant, especially on the trees. Some of these biomes look absolutely gorgeous and vivid from a color perspective. It's nothing too impressive from a graphical fidelity standpoint due to it being on the Unity engine, but it's more than serviceable here. And obviously, as I said, the art direction definitely does make up for it. The music is on another level entirely, and it was just great listening to it. It's very zen-like and very great for each of the seasons, the way it progresses. It's honestly amazing and very well done here. Very surprised with how good the music is, how good it is, and I'm just hoping that it can be released on Steam soon, so it's easier to purchase. I had to purchase it through Bandcamp, so that's where I got my copy to be able to show to you, like the songs and whatnot. But I hope it's on Steam because I would just buy it there as well. So you know me, I always like my roadmaps, and I think at this point it should become a requirement and a standard for early access games. And thankfully, the main menu includes a rough roadmap as well as a notification on when the next update is arriving. The game states that you may need to reset progress for any large updates, which is always something to consider for every early access game. After the most recent update, it appears that permanent progress is retained, which is a good thing, and I appreciate the transparency from the devs here. Also, I haven't ran into any game-breaking bugs, which is a rarity again for early access titles. The updates seem to be going every 2 weeks as well, so definitely keep that in mind when you're purchasing, and so far they've been pretty on top of that, so I appreciate that. So overall, I mean, I highly recommend it, even at its current state. The combination of traditional city building elements and a roguelike twist to it is honestly very well done here. Many variables such as the species available, buildings, tasks, biomes, threats, etc., that really make it incredibly replayable, and just adding more content will continue to increase that replayability. So it's definitely very highly enticing for what the future ultimately entails. I just don't really have too many gripes with this one, and it's overall a breath of fresh air for the genre, which again, I very well appreciate. So well done here, can't really complain. Thank you guys for watching as always. Please like, share, and subscribe. And this is Powerhouse, signing off.